Dan, I've heard you've got into a whole new genre of pedals.
Don't worry, mate. It's just a phase. Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello. Please subscribe. Do that. And go to That Pedal Show store to buy merch. Please do that as well.
Indeed. Right. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission from Dog. I have started a new project,
Yes.
a new band, playing loads of 70s stuff. And one thing that most of these tunes have is phaser on guitar. And I kind of knew that was the case, but listening back to it, it's like, wow, someone brought out a phaser in the 70s and everyone went, right, I like that. I'm having that on everything.
Yeah, and then let's put it on the drums and the vocals.
Yeah.
And everything else, and we'll whoosh about like a... Okay, let's start from... So by the end of the video, what will happen is we'll talk a little bit about what is phase. We'll talk about some of the key different kinds that you can currently get and maybe where they're pinned in history. And then we'll run through some of the current offerings. There's some vintage stuff on here. There's some new stuff that's very affordable. And there's some slightly off-the-wall stuff.
Indeed.
In usual TPS fashion.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start. What is the difference between phaser and flanger?
Okay, flanger and chorus are tied very close together because it is a modulation of delay tied to the direct signal. So what happens with chorus and flange, it's a very, very tiny delay, and then that delay that's put on top of the original signal, delayed by a tiny amount, is modulated. The time is modulated, so we get an up and down.
And when you say tiny, that can be almost down to 1 millisecond, can't it?
So for
Flange.
that's for flange, yes,
Yeah.
down to 1 millisecond, say up to 16, 20 milliseconds. And then from that point, chorus takes over.
Yeah.
So the longer the delay time, we go out of flange into chorus. The difference with the phaser is we're still talking about modulating a delay time, but it's frequency dependent. So what happens is the delay time is tiny and it's caused by a phase shift in a capacitor, right? So if you imagine you have a capacitor and every time a signal goes through a capacitor, you do get a tiny modulation, a shift in phase. And then you put a resistor around the outside of that capacitor. Now, if we vary the value of that resistor, we go from lots of resistance, then more signals going through the capacitor. If we have low resistance, less signal going through the capacitor, more signal going around the outside.
Huh.
Right. Now, because it's such a tiny amount, it is directly linked to the frequency that we get that phase shift at. So what happens in a phaser, you have this modulating resistance around the outside of the capacitor, and that's where the frequency goes up and down. We're getting that tiny phase shift in frequency.
So the value of the resistor will determine
what frequency we're phasing at.
There we are.
And then we take a couple of those stages, put them together, and then that determines the amount of so we have like a 2-stage phaser, 4-stage phaser, whether we're going 45 degree, 90 degree, all that stuff.
So that's why, to leap ahead, we've
That's
got
right.
a phase 45 and a phase 90.
Yeah, phase 45 is a 2-stage phaser.
Yeah.
Phase 90, 4 stage.
That's a beautiful thing. Right. Seeing as we've got 2 different modulation effects on here currently, we do have a chorus and we do have a phaser. So can we just hear the difference between chorus and phaser,
Yes.
just to kick us off?
Absolutely. So we have 2 amps today.
I wonder what the settings are.
We've got Laser J J20 and the matchless. Now, I'm being very selfish today because this is all about me. I am searching for the phaser that I'm going to use in the show, and these are the amps that I will more than likely use. There may be a Princeton thrown in the mix somewhere, not quite sure. But the amps by themselves sound thusly. Bit of reverb coming from the J20.
Lovely.
They're so cool.
Really lovely.
Right, so in the Ripley Fall, we have a phaser and a chorus. So Mick, I'll get you to switch between the two. So here is the phaser from the Ripley Fall. So that chorus is that beautiful, thick, modulating doubled sound, whereas the phaser is that soupy sort of movement. And what's interesting with the Ripley Fall, so that's a 2-stage phaser, and if you change the speed, you can get like really slow, sort of Van Halen-y type stuff, where it takes ages to sort of go through those frequencies, up to like really full-on modulation.
Yeah.
So if you just change it, vary the speed for us.
It's super interesting because by combining the chorus and the phaser together, we'll finish this. I appreciate we've massively tangented already. You can get into pseudo vibe.
Yeah, that's
as
right.
distinct from vibrato, but vibe, you know, the thing that Jimi Hendrix used and Robin Trower. Robin Trousers. And actually pseudo rotary as well.
Yeah.
When you add in the additional speed. So Ripley Fall, killer.
And that, I'm a massive fan of that. My issue, and there's lots of things that we haven't included on the board, the ER2 from Thorpe, there's a bunch of things that are bigger. My thing is I need a compact phaser.
Right.
I've limited myself, and we'll see it in the vlog that's coming up, but I've purposely limited myself the amount of space. And if it doesn't fit, I'm not using it. Which is
that's a sea change for Daniel.
It is.
Because normally it was by any means necessary.
Completely.
But now we have a
Well, I've got a keyboard player, like BVs, like and some of the stages that we're playing, I just want to be very conscious of, you know, that sort of thing. So I've got space for a compact phaser.
All right. Well, I would say then on this end of the board. So we've got. Let's have a listen to some utter classics, and I think the utter classics are these three, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Oh well, and that one.
And that one.
But particularly these three.
Yeah.
And in time terms, which comes first? Either of these?
In time terms, I would say the MXR Phase 90. So that's 1974. The Small Stone is 1978. And the Phase is not far after that.
This particular PH1 was part of the Boss 40th anniversary box set that they very kindly sent us. So that's why it looks so clean. All right, well, let's start with the MXR then. Let's flick through each of them and just hear the difference in tonality.
Yeah.
I have an absolute clear favourite. Do you?
Yeah. At this stage, I do.
For the clean?
For the clean thing.
And which one is it?
45.
Oh, right. Small Stone for me.
Yeah, okay.
What does the knob on it? Is the knob?
The knob is just speed.
With the vintage Electro Harmonix stuff, Dan actually told me to do the switch, but I tend not to do any switches or knobs on vintage Electro Harmonix stuff because they tend not to work for most of the vintage Electro Harmonix pedals that we own. So every time you turn it, it'll go or break or something. So that is one downside of vintage pedals.
Yeah.
Unless they're very well maintained.
Indeed. Now that I do have an earlier Small Stone than that, but I actually think this is the V2. I actually think this sounds better than the V1.
The depth of the phase
it's wonderful.
Is wonderful. I really like it in that in the dark mode as well.
Yeah, the full on thing.
Yeah. It's sort of, because it's funny, let's talk very briefly about where you've heard phasers in genre of music, and it's so diverse, isn't it?
Oh man.
Because first and foremost, we might think about country.
Yeah.
Well, I would anyway.
Yep.
I would think about Waylon Jennings, that whole sort of outlaw country thing. And then you can hear that come through into people like Chris Stapleton, Chris Schiffler.
Yeah.
You can hear it, that genesis happen. It was all there on that. I don't know if this might be too dark, but. Actually,
It's such a sound.
with the colour there, that is more a kind of...
Do the same thing, but with the color down.
The depth of that is mad. Let me just try to... I'm 9 years old again, listening to my old man's country records.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, apologies for not playing it right, but so country, funk we talked about, and of course rock.
Very much so. So the Phase 90, you know, one of Eddie Van Halen's staples.
Yeah.
Specifically the early script version like that. And we call this a script version because of the logo written in a beautiful script text. The Phase 45 is a little bit newer with the block logo, but you can still see there's no LED on that one, so it's still very old. Circuits are basically identical.
But 2 and 4 stage.
2 and 4 stage.
And you're talking about the rock world, aren't you, really? Because you don't play country or funk.
No, more on the rock thing.
I mean, obviously it exists outside of that as well, but that's... Yeah. And prog?
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
Yeah, very much. Well, 70s prog.
There you go.
There you go. And it's really interesting because, so I'm using the phaser in 3 specific ways.
Okay.
Well, actually 4. I'm using the phaser 1 before overdrive, 2 after overdrive. Sorry, it is 3. And the third one, I'm using it in parallel where it's just on one side.
So I think we better hear all of that.
It's really interesting. So, right, let's go with the small stone.
We'll go with your favourite.
All right, I'll go with the 45.
Yeah.
There's something about the 45 that just sits in a lovely place.
Is it because it's less?
Maybe. And it might not work in the split thing. We need to try it out.
All right.
I'm going to add a little bit of drive from the protein. And at the moment, the protein is before.
Okay.
So actually, let's just go, here we go. So this is with the phaser, this is with the phasers after the protein.
Right.
Right? So. And now, phaser before the protein.
It's so mad.
Isn't it? I say, this is the phaser in the matchless only.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that might be out of phase, so I'm just going to switch the phase on the. So it's interesting.
You think it's out of phase
I
because
thought
it's
it was
phasey.
That's right. The phase 90 is out of phase. The phase 45 isn't.
Oh man. Oh man. That's the danger then of going wet dry with
That's
anything
right.
like this.
That's right. So what I'll do, I'll go from the phaser in both amps, and then I'll just split it so you can hear the difference, right?
Okay.
So Phaser in both.
So because in the chain of effects there, you've got overdrive, the split happens after the overdrive.
Correct.
And the phaser is going down one line.
Correct.
So you necessarily have to have the phaser after the overdrive.
Exactly.
But what with it before, Dan often likes flanger, for example, before overdrive.
Yeah.
And I think we both, whether it's any vintage voice analog modulation effect, whether that is phaser, flanger, chorus, and at a push vibe, always before overdrive for me. I prefer them before overdrive.
Yeah, I agree completely. If you think of, like, I think Eddie Van Halen is a really great example of this.
Yeah.
You know, you see Eddie's board. Eddie's amps were his overdrive,
Yeah.
and they were cranked, and that phaser is going directly into the front. So
Exactly the same as Hendrix and the Vibe.
there you go.
Because the Vibe came after the fuzz often with Hendrix, it's assumed that the modulation has to come after the overdrive. But don't forget, the amp is cranked and overdriking. What's wrong with me today? Driving like a good one.
Yeah,
And the same with Van Halen.
like
Yeah.
100%.
So in that sense, in this case, phaser, in Hendrix's case, Vibe, and in Robin Trower for that matter,
Yeah,
before overdrive.
yeah, completely.
Yeah.
So you hear the difference between having it before and after, but there are also times when I will want them split and have it soupy, like overdrive into phaser, but only in one side.
So that because it gets a bit much, doesn't it? It gets a bit like
Completely.
It determines the whole
Completely.
the whole thing.
Yeah, completely. So that's basically the two ways that we're using it is phaser into overdrive, or overdrive split phaser one side, not on the other.
So let's pick one of those,
Yep.
and we'll just have a quick flick around these four again,
Yep.
and decide which you like best in one of those environments.
Okay, let's just go phaser into overdrive.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is just straightforward phaser, overdrive, 2 amps.
Yes. There we go. So phaser before.
Okay, so we'll have a flick round. We're doing what we did before, but now we've got an overdriven sound courtesy of the Protein. There's no phaser on. Because I've been listening to phaser now for about half an hour, I hear phaser psychoacoustically from the 2 amps.
Right.
What's that about?
It's just being a legend.
Come on then. I think I'm drawn to the small stone
Yeah.
because it sounds more obvious.
Yeah.
Is it a 2-stage phaser?
No, it's 4.
It is 4.
Yeah.
Because in the Phase 90, the phasing feels more complex to me.
Yeah.
It feels more sort of like, it's not, but the small stone to me feels like you get more of a pulse like you do with a vibe or a harmonic tremolo,
Yeah.
which is my world.
Yeah.
I prefer those things.
Yeah.
Whereas the others is less of a kind of single wave, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The small stone for me sits between the 90 and the 45.
Right.
Almost. I really dig the 45 in that context because it is, you get a great amount of movement, but doesn't overtake the way that the 90 does. I think for heavier sounds, you know, I mean, the 90 is an absolute classic. But I know what you mean, the small stone, but actually the PH1,
Yeah.
I thought was really good. I think it's really detailed.
I reduced the depth a bit,
Right.
just so that it wasn't pulsing quite so much. But
And that's a nice feature to have, to be able to dial it in a bit.
because on all the others, it's only speed, right?
Yeah, only speed.
Yeah, so the depth of the phasing is as you want it.
Yeah.
Let's just hear that in the PH1 just for a quickie. And a more hi-fi presentation of the... That's one thing Dan will get very, very teary-eyed about, is the way in which analog modulators of this type maintain high-end.
Yeah. In a very
Which
beautiful
digital
way.
ones just don't do.
They just don't do it like that.
No. So have you got a favourite now then?
Oh man, it's really tricky. I think the small stone is tonally, it's so beautiful. The 45 it's ticking a lot of boxes. Yeah.
Okay, well let's move on.
It's really tricky because the PH1, that depth control is really powerful.
Yeah. I wonder also if the increased fidelity in the high end
Yeah.
would work live.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So I guess the question that everyone's going to be asking is how much does the Tone City
Summer Orange
sound like the Phase 90?
Yeah, okay.
Should we have a quick listen to that?
Yeah. So you'll see that the Summer Orange has got a third knob, and that is the feedback. So
Oh, wow.
what happens with some phases, in particular on the back wall, you'll see the Musitronics Phaser 2, which has the feedback control. It takes the output and feeds it back to the input, giving you like almost a jet flanger.
Like a flanger,
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Okay, well let's start with the Phase 90 then. that feedback thing is super interesting because it's not what you'd expect.
No.
And it gives it like a metallic edge, exactly like you
Exactly
said.
that, exactly
I turn it down
that.
to nothing to do the comparisons. I thought, listening to it next to the Phase 90, it doesn't have the clarity.
No.
And it doesn't have the extended high end, a bit more mid-focused. I thought that might be more like the PH1,
Okay.
but it's not.
No.
It's okay, but it's definitely not as sweet
Yeah. And
as the others.
that's right. It's such a, like, if you're into analog modulation, these are the little things that are like the big differentiation factors.
Yeah.
It's interesting in like the small stone. The process that small stone uses is a bit different than the other phases, but as is, you know, the MXR versus the Boss, they all do things slightly differently, but that slight difference results in a completely different character.
Yeah.
And yeah, they it's one of those effects they really got right in the 70s.
Let me have let's have a quick go with Humbuckers a minute with some overdrive. Can you just see if you can love the summer orange anymore?
I can, yeah, for sure.
The orange summer. The order of the effects is the same?
Yeah, we've got
Definitely both before overdrive.
definitely.
Oh wow, that's like sounds like a
before overdrive.
wow.
Yeah,
The depth is at maximum.
yeah. Well, I did change it,
Okay.
but you can hear that when the phase 90 comes in, it still stays so tonally.
Different game.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. That sounded like a cocked wah. It was kind of odd,
Right.
actually. For all of you screaming at the screen now, you're not being fair. It's just, I'm just saying what I hear. Okay. It does sound like a cocked wah. All right. So where are we? Where are you currently?
For me, funnily enough, the only one that I think is the phase 90.
It's my least favourite.
Yeah.
Apart from the summer orange, but it is my least favourite.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing. I think for the clean sound, I dig it. But the PH1, the Phase 45, and the Small Stone are very strong contenders. The Small Stone has the most amount of character,
Yeah.
which I dig. The Phase 45 probably is, yeah.
Okay.
But
So
it's so tricky.
we're ruling the Ripley Fallout because it's a dual pedal
That's
and
right.
it's too big.
It's just too big.
Okay, so that was really just to set us up at the beginning and so you could hear the difference between chorus and phaser. So there's two more then, the Vibraphase from ZVEX, which is really super interesting because it's got vibe and phaser.
Yeah. So the way they do this is that process we're talking about before, where you're going through the capacitor and you've got that the variable resistor around the outside. That, of course, has to be blended with a dry signal so that you're getting your notch filter, right? What the retro phase does is gives you that blend control on a pot. So you can either go blend it all the way in, so you've got a phaser, or have only the wet signal, which gives you that vibrato.
Oh, that's really cool.
Very cool. This is their version. I don't know if you remember years ago,
Candles.
The candles,
Bits of
the
metal.
candela phaser, like steampunk 1800s technology. It's just so clever. And this is that version, but in a pedal, which is so cool. And I thought, okay, we haven't really given this much time, but let's see how that sounds. So if you want to just play this for us.
You can turn me into a progger yet, mate. I love that. I love it because it has elements of the deeper modulation that I love from vibes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's possibly not what I'm looking for this.
Yeah,
I'm definitely after the more the vintage thing, but I do think it sounds. I mean, I haven't played a ZVEX pedal yet that I didn't think it sounded fantastic.
I dig it.
Yeah, it's
just
very
out of
cool.
interest. How rotary speaker can it get? Yeah, always more vibey.
Yeah.
But cool.
Yeah.
Really super cool, actually.
Very cool.
I dig it.
The last one is the Maestro Orbit Phaser. And this is cool because you've got the feedback control, but you also have a switch that goes from 4 to 6 stages.
Yeah, we're not... So I did a quick Google for Maestro. Maestro had a big sort of comeback a couple years back, owned by Gibson, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Had a big comeback and a big push. And for whatever reason, the pedals just didn't hit in the way... Because they're well priced. They're really well made.
Yeah,
they
really well
look
made.
fantastic.
They
and
do.
they sound good.
Yeah.
So it was kind of confusing that they didn't become more popular than they did, but maybe they did and I just don't know about it. And we're not even still sure if it's currently available. I think it is. So is the question here, how close does it sound to your favourite and would you choose it?
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
So where did we end up? We ended up on the 45, did we?
For me, small stone and 45. It's
Okay.
sort of a toss-up.
Let's have a listen.
Be very happy with either.
Let's have a listen then. Let's reacquaint ourselves with the beautifully bonkers small stone. There's something about the fidelity in all the older ones that none of the newer ones have. Again, feeling a bit cocked territory. I don't know if I was doing something wrong, but I was trying every extreme of every control.
Yeah.
The EQ in the 6th stage is a lot softer than it is in the 4th
Yeah,
stage.
it's very interesting. I was waiting for it to get like super soupy.
Yeah.
But that wasn't there. For me, that's the best of the new ones.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really cool.
And nice to be able to put that feedback in, up the rate, and you can get to sort of kind of vibey. But if you were going to do that, go with the Vibrophase.
I know. And
on a practical, can I raise a practical point? A practical question. Are we doing Stonehenge? Even though the small stone and the Orbit are somewhat bigger,
yes,
they have top-mounted jacks.
Exactly.
So actually, by the time you've got into all the kerfuffle, they don't actually take that much more room on the board.
No, exactly
they are
right.
also. This one's also a bit taller.
Yep.
So it does take up quite a lot of depth that way.
Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is just do the parallel thing.
Okay.
With some drive and some reverb and delay. And if you can switch between those for me, just the phase 45 and the small stone.
Okay.
And then we'll make a decision.
I may well include the phase 90 as well.
Yep.
Because
Groovy.
once you add all that business, especially overdrive, everything changes again.
completely.
Protein sounded good today.
Protein sounds good every day.
Is that the Nobles side, the green one?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a groovy thing.
It's a nice thing.
Okay, here we go. Oh, man.
Yeah, no brainer for me.
Yeah, right.
What do you think? Actually, it's a partial brainer.
It's a partial brainer? Right.
Yeah.
Tell me, so you're saying small stone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the 45.
It's good. I think they both sound amazing.
The Phase 90, if you want a super whooshy, full on phaser, it's that.
Yeah.
But it's too much for me personally.
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I dig the Ripley Fall. Like if I was
Yeah.
choosing, I'd have the Ripley Fall, so then I could have a chorus as well.
Yeah, yeah. And the chorus blended with that phaser sounds so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, for what I'm doing, it's just that
You need the one thing.
I need the one thing. Okay, well I'm just going to spend some time with the two of them. But
Yeah.
if I was to make a decision today, I would go the small stone. I'll tell you why. Because it gives me access to one other really full-on sound with that switch.
Yeah. Gonna say the switch
It's really cool.
is really cool.
Yeah. But there's something about the Phase 45, man, that I just really dig. Okay. I can't make up my mind, but if I was today, small stone. We'll see.
Watch this space. There you go. Hope that was useful. So we covered some classic phase sounds. We covered before and after overdrive, and also in a sort of wet dry situation. In addition to that, a phaser crossed with a vibe.
Yeah.
And a phaser with added chorus if you want something other than just phaser.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, from my personal point of view, I feel happy that I don't feel compelled to add one to my board.
Okay, great.
Which is good, because having just finished my pedal board, I'm like, I kind of don't want to do today's show.
But it's interesting that because you've got the rotary on there.
Yeah.
That sort of does all of that.
In the slow and in the brake setting, it's almost a phaser.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So you're sorted. But for the 70 stuff, I specifically need phasing.
Yeah. It's such a sound, isn't it?
It's just I mean, I love it. I'm a big fan. Okay.
Well, there's one thing left to do, Dan. We'll say goodbye and fade out over this bit. Thank you very much for watching. Please go to thatpedalshowstore.com and buy merch. It's the primary way we fund this show, and we're very grateful for doing so.
And yes, absolutely. A massive thank you to our patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you kindly. Yeah, there's links to all this stuff in the description below. If you use the link and you go to like Sweetwater or Andertons or Pedal Empire, we get a little something if you buy something from those guys as well. All of which helps keep the ship afloat.
Indeed.
I nearly said shit.
It keeps us in phases.
Nice. Come on then.
Okay, let's just go old school.
Have at it, as our friend Paulie Smith would say.